Hi, my name is Grace Kemp from www.scriptureseries.com. This is part 2 of our talk on Lamentations. Will the real author of Lamentations please stand up? In part 1, I explained that there was a clue in Lamentations 1:14 that could apply only to Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, who I believe is the true author of Lamentations. The author of Lamentations, which is an autobiography, is a king. Jeremiah, of course, is a prophet, not a king. The Lamentations, several of the verses, the Lord hath delivered me into their hands. The Lord hath despised the king. The anointed of the Lord was taken in their pits. We shall live among the heathen. The crown is fallen from our head. All of those words, many of those words indicate a king. Crown, that's anointed, he calls himself a king. And of course Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, was taken prisoner by Nebuchadnezzar at the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Imprisoned in a dungeon, blinded, he dictated the Lamentations very like to Ezekiel. In fact, Ezekiel 19 indicates that God told him to take up a Lamentations for the kings of Israel, which he did. One of whom specifically we know is Zedekiah. So undoubtedly Ezekiel recorded this lament from Zedekiah, who was in the bottom of the dungeon. Note the use of possessive pronouns. In the 117 verses of Lamentations, this expression, my, is used 15 times in relationship to my mighty man, my young men, my city, my priests, my virgins, my lovers. Who would say those things except a king? Certainly not Jeremiah. In the 52 chapters of Jeremiah, never once, not once, does he ever use my as in that way. Like my army, my lovers, my mighty men. He has never once in 52 chapters ever said that. Those are the words of a king, the use of the possessive pronoun. The author of Lamentations was pursued. He said, I was pursued upon the mountains, and they laid wait for us in the wilderness. Jeremiah had prophesied that the Chaldean army would pursue after them and overtake Zedekiah and his men in the plains of Jericho. That was what Jeremiah said would happen, and the author of Lamentations talks about it happening to him. I was pursued upon the mountains. The author of Lamentations was ensnared. Ezekiel prophesied, this concerneth Zedekiah in Jerusalem. My net will I spread upon him, and he shall be taken in my snare, and I will bring him to Babylon. So says Ezekiel. What does the author of Lamentations say? He hath spread a net for my feet, a snare is come upon us. So he seems to be the recipient of these prophecies. The author of Lamentations was chained. He said, he hath made my chain heavy. Was that prophesied about Zedekiah? Jeremiah says the king of Babylon bound Zedekiah with chains to carry him to Babylon. Ezekiel says they put him in ward in chains. They brought him into holds. So Zedekiah is the man that was chained, and he's the author of Lamentations. The sword, Zedekiah said, my young men are fallen by the sword. And was that prophesied as well? Yes. I will deliver Zedekiah and his servants into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, and he shall smite them with the sword. So you can see from these and numerous other passages that the descriptions in Lamentations only fit Zedekiah. They're prophesied by Jeremiah and Ezekiel particularly, but they fit the author of Lamentations to a T. So therefore we conclude that the author of Lamentations is none other than Zedekiah. Please return for part 3 of this series on the author of Lamentations.